I married a high school classmate and became pregnant. However, my husband Mark's behavior became suspicious after the pregnancy was confirmed. While I was struggling to find proof of my husband's affair, his affair partner sent me a series of photographs as if to say, "I got your husband." Seeing this, I made a decision. I smiled as I saw off my husband, who went on a trip with his affair partner, a female friend. And that's when my plan started moving forward. I had prepared a surprise for my husband, who went on an overseas trip with his affair partner, Angela, and the result was... How does one break a relationship? It seems that the ties that I thought had been severed were not severed. Please, let me vent for a moment. There was a time when even someone like me was married. My husband was a high school classmate. After high school, we went separate ways without much contact, but we coincidentally met at a diner near my workplace. Nostalgia kicked in, and our conversations became more frequent and lively. Naturally, we started dating and eventually talked about marriage. After we got married, we decided to live together in the apartment where I was staying. I think we were a happy couple in the early days of our marriage. My husband used to say he preferred doing everything together, but after my pregnancy was confirmed, he started going out alone more often. His overtime and business trips increased. He always said he was busy, almost like a habit. When he returned from outings, I asked where he had been, and he casually brushed it off, saying it didn't matter. Occasionally, when he returned smelling good, he claimed he had been to the sauna. However, I knew he couldn't stand heat, so I quickly realized it was a lie. I had a vague feeling that he might have another woman. As I pondered how to catch him in the act, a WhatsApp message came through. It contained a photo of an unfamiliar woman and my husband together. Another message arrived. This time it was a photo of the same woman making a peace sign with my husband sleeping in the background. Clearly it showed a situation where he was cheating. The woman was smiling provocatively in the photos. Then another WhatsApp message came in. "Nice to meet you. I'm Angela, who's dating your husband. I took a cute sleeping face photo of your husband, so I thought I'd share it with you too. Your husband can't get enough of me because you're pregnant, so he's all over me. Please pay a little attention to your husband too." That was the message. Dating? Sharing? What is this Angela talking about? Wait, my husband? He really was cheating, wasn't he? Through this "what's up" from Angela, my suspicions all came together. Although I vaguely sensed it before, seeing it clearly in front of me didn't make me angry or sad. Somewhere inside me, I had already mentally prepared for divorce. Even on the day my husband came home, I didn't confront him about the truth and treated him the same as before. Before my husband took a bath, I heard that next month he was going on a week-long overseas trip with his female friend. Well, it's not a request, it's an announcement made after the decision. Next month is already 9 months, and maybe the baby will be born. He doesn't worry about such things at all. He even told me not to worry because the baby won't be born so soon. He said he gave me some alone time because it would be tough when the baby was born. His female friend also said, "Let your wife have some freedom," so he told me to relax. Then I'll take you up on that and enjoy my alone time thoroughly. Oh, Stacy, are you condoning your husband's affair? No, that response isn't right. Oh, Stacy, I understand perfectly well. You seem to be plotting something. I'll look forward to it. There's no way I'm going to let it end like this. I don't have the magnanimity to forgive my husband's cheating. After this, Angela, my husband's friend, kept sending me photos one after another. She probably wanted to establish dominance, but it's no skin off my nose since I've already decided to divorce. Besides, evidence of his affair keeps accumulating without me having to do anything. Talk about a lucky break. I've been enjoying myself. Then after a month had passed, it became the day when my husband would go on his trip overseas. Yesterday, perhaps out of excitement, he seemed unable to fall asleep easily. He tossed and turned on the bed multiple times, waking me up repeatedly. Unaware of my sleep deprivation caused by him, my husband happily set off on his trip. Now, should I start taking action? I started cleaning up the house all at once. I had household appliances cleaned and sold. I took small items to a nearby recycling shop. I bundled up my husband's belongings and sent them cash on delivery to his parents' house. I also sent the divorce papers along with them. Since I have been steadily reducing things in the house since I made the plan, it was tidied up sooner than I expected. My belongings were already sent to my parents' house, and only the bare essentials were left in this house. The cancellation of the house was already arranged. I also completed the procedures for electricity and gas utilities. I had already collected the keys to the house for my husband, as it's dangerous for him to take them abroad. After cleaning the house thoroughly and handing over the keys, I returned home with my belongings to my parents' house. My father and mother warmly welcomed me, and the three of us had already moved to another place. While peacefully spending time at my parents' house, I received a call from my husband. Today was the day my husband was returning home. I answered the incessantly ringing phone.
Hey, what's going on here? I rang the doorbell, why aren't you opening the door?
I'm not in that house anymore.
Huh? Are you out somewhere? You said you were at home, so I left the keys. Now I can't get into the house. Hurry up and come back, I'm exhausted.
I'm not going back to that house anymore.
What are you talking about?
I canceled the lease on the house. Your stuff is sent to your parents' house.
Hey, what's going on? Why did you cancel the house? My stuff to my parents?
Even over the phone, I can feel my husband's growing panic.
Huh? Why is this happening? Why? Did I do something?
I'm going on a week-long overseas trip with a female friend? I can't understand your thoughts.
I talked about it. I wanted to give you some time alone. I tried to consider you. Isn't that enough?
If I wanted time alone, there were other ways, like going back to my parents, right? If it was really just a female friend, I wouldn't be this upset. You went with Angela, right? You know best what you did, don't you? My words made him realize the severity of the situation, and he became even more flustered. Angela's name had never come up from my husband's mouth before. Since I mentioned Angela's name as his female friend, he must have realized his affair was exposed.
No, listen, Angela isn't just a friend, she's my soulmate. My soulmate. It's like a soul connected to soul. It's something beyond friendship.
My husband trying desperately to push through with his excuses. It's becoming painful to listen to. Soulmates, huh? Well, and if you can be happy with your so-called soulmate, go ahead. Living with you anymore is impossible for me. I'm filing for divorce. I've sent the divorce papers to your parents' house, so fill them out.
I don't want a divorce. I don't want it. Hey, please, just listen to me.
I didn't want to hear any more excuses, so I hung up on my husband's call. Soulmate. It's been a while since I heard such a terrible excuse. Soulmate isn't going to cut it. It's like he's talking about his destined partner or something. Trying to make excuses, but digging his own grave. He's really not helping himself. After that, I received several calls and messages from my husband. The WhatsApp messages ranged from excuses and sob stories to compliments and poems, changing like 7 times. While watching that, I started feeling pain in my stomach. It felt different from normal pain, so just in case, I decided to go to the hospital. I contacted my parents and headed to the hospital alone for a checkup, thinking it was just stomach pain. I called my mom amidst the hustle and bustle to bring the childbirth bag. During all this time, the calls kept coming. I had no room to care about my husband and steadily prepared to deliver the baby. Because of that, I couldn't escape the pain of labor, no matter how I positioned myself. Amidst my suffering from the pain, my husband's calls kept coming in. The pain of labor combined with everything else reached its peak of frustration for me. I answered my husband's call.
Finally got through.
Stop calling so many times, damn it. Can't you see I'm in labor? I don't have time for you. After yelling at my husband, I immediately hung up and turned off my phone. I really had no patience left. I was battling through repeated waves of contractions. Meanwhile, it seems my husband finally regained his senses and rushed to the hospital, but he went to the wrong hospital, so it ended up being in vain. Well, I hadn't told him where I was being transferred to. While my husband was flustered, I safely gave birth to our son, feeling completely exhausted. Since our son didn't weigh more than 5 pounds, he had to be put in an incubator. Perhaps I had exhausted myself too much because I fell asleep right after giving birth to our son. I woke up refreshed the next day. When I turned on my smartphone, I found an overwhelming number of missed calls and WhatsApp messages from my husband. When I checked what's up, at first they were angry, but gradually became less assertive, and by the end, their messages were filled with complaints and self-pity. Finally, it ended with the creepy words,
"My heart will always be by your side,"
which made me feel disgusted. Seriously, please don't come near me anymore. I don't need my husband's heart anymore. Just to be safe, I informed the nurses to restrict visitation rights to only my parents. Despite that, my husband's calls and WhatsApp messages continued frequently. But I didn't respond. I always kept my phone on silent mode, so I didn't notice calls from anyone other than my husband. My mother complained that she couldn't contact me. When the day came to leave the hospital, my parents came to pick me up, but I couldn't leave with our son who was in the incubator. Since I gave birth at 35 weeks, it was considered premature, and our son would need to grow a bit more before joining us. As we drove back home with my father at the wheel, I noticed someone's figure at the front door. Getting out of the car and heading towards the entrance, there was my husband, dressed in a suit, kneeling and waiting. I asked my mother why he was there at this timing, but she was as surprised as I was. Beside her, my father wore an apologetic expression. When I asked my father what was going on, he said he felt sorry for my husband and informed him of the day I was to be discharged. It seemed my husband had been trying to contact both my father and mother numerous times. My mother apparently ignored him completely, but my father, being of the same gender, seemed to listen to him occasionally. Although I had told my parents about divorcing my husband, my father seemed to want to settle things peacefully. I made sure to firmly tell my father not to let my husband contact me again. My husband, who had been kneeling at the front door, kept bowing his head and apologizing repeatedly. Even if he apologized now, my feelings wouldn't change, and I had no intention of forgiving him. As I walked past him towards the house, he clung to my legs, which made me feel disgusted. No matter how much he apologized, it was already too late. I told him to go home and conveyed that message clearly, then peeled his hands off my legs and entered the house. My mother entered the house without saying a word to my husband as well. My father urged my husband to go home for the day. While my husband was no longer in front of the entrance, he wandered around the neighborhood. Feeling uneasy about the situation, I decided to report him as a suspicious person. A few minutes later, the police arrived and questioned my husband. He wasn't taken away by the police, but he disappeared from sight. It would have been better if he had been taken away by the police. Stacy, could it be that your husband is going through a postpartum period, as they say? If he's going to apologize like this, he shouldn't have done it in the first place. Saying he didn't want a divorce, but then going on a trip with a female friend, what does my husband really want? Later, it was decided to have a discussion involving both families. Considering my health, we decided to have the discussion at my parents' home. The doorbell rang and my in-laws and husband arrived. My husband and father-in-law had shaved their heads completely. It must have been a ruse to show repentance. As soon as they came in, my husband and father-in-law lowered their heads. My mother-in-law stood behind them with a stern expression. My husband kept apologizing incessantly, insisting he didn't want a divorce. My mother, seeing him continue to apologize, suggested that I should forgive him. But I can't live with a husband I want to divorce anymore. It would take the father away from the child, but this one thing is non-negotiable. At this point, I was rejecting my husband more than I should have, and forgiveness was not an option left in my mind. When the conversation had hit a deadlock, with neither side making progress, my mother-in-law, who had been wearing a stern expression since arriving at our house, finally spoke up.
It's just a trip overseas with a female friend, isn't it? Isn't it a bit too much to divorce over that? I think you, Stacy, are making too much of a fuss. It's pitiful for your son if his mother acts like this. Such a fuss over such a trivial matter, that wife of yours. You're going on an overseas trip with friend for some real action.
My mother-in-law must think I'm upset just because my husband went on an overseas trip with a female friend. But that's not all, you see. When I stood up to show my in-laws the printed out evidence of cheating sent via WhatsApp, the doorbell rang. My mother went to the door to respond, but along with her voice saying, "Just a moment," someone came bustling into the house. With a bang, the door swung open, revealing Angela standing there. Angela has arrived. I feel like things are about to get wild. It's exciting, and I kinda like it. Angela descends upon us. No one summoned her. She's here uninvited. Everyone was surprised by Angela's sudden appearance.
Husband, divorce Stacy right now.
Hold on, what are you talking about? Not divorcing Stacy, and there's no reason to.
Mark started to panic when Angela arrived, realizing she was indeed his mistress.
Wait, how did you find out about this place? I said we should talk, but you wouldn't know the location, right?
It's the GPS on our phones. I installed the app last time. Let's check each other's locations, okay? If we know where each other is, we won't feel lonely. Even if we're apart, we're always together.
Wow, I'm totally taken aback by what she just said. My husband has a look on his face like, shit.
I told you not to come here. What are you doing here? You have no business here.
Huh? You say I have no business here? Can you say the same after seeing this?
Angela took something out of her bag and placed it on the desk. Upon seeing it, my husband paled instantly and everyone else was taken aback. On the desk lay the maternity record book and an ultrasound photo. Where it says mother, something that appeared to be Angela's name was written. In the ultrasound photo, a tiny embryo was visible.
It's your child, 6 weeks along.
The word pregnant caused further shock for me and my parents. I looked at my mother-in-law for some reason and her face was lit up.
Oh, so it's my son's child, huh?
My mother-in-law took the ultrasound photo and gazed at it with a joyful expression.
Really, you should divorce Stacy already. Having a wife like her just makes things difficult for you. Now that you have a new child, you need to take responsibility.
As expected, Mom, you get straight to the point. I'm happy to have such a clever mom.
Oh, clever? Well, I suppose. The new daughter-in-law is adorable, isn't she?
It seemed like a flower garden was blooming around them. We're completely left out and abandoned. I knew my mother-in-law didn't like me, but I didn't expect her to show such blatant attitude. Now that it seems you've got a new child, shall we talk about divorce?
Wait a minute, it's just you, Stacy, for me. I'm not getting divorced.
Angela and my mother-in-law's expressions changed at my husband's words.
What are you talking about? You should divorce Stacy, Mark. That's right, you should divorce such a wife. Being with such a wife will only lead to unhappiness.
My daughter is causing unhappiness?
Up until now, my parents had been quietly watching. My father's voice was filled with anger. My mother sitting beside me also had a fierce expression on her face.
Your son is making my daughter unhappy and my newborn son too. The cause of the divorce isn't my daughter, if it's your son. Do you understand? The reason our daughter had a premature birth is because of you two, isn't it? And yet you're saying my daughter's the one causing unhappiness. You two are spreading unhappiness. I can't let you stay together any longer. I will make sure my daughter divorces you, and I will never allow you to see your grandchild. Get out of this house. You are a plague in my house.
My father then grabbed my husband by the scruff of the neck and threw him out of the house. My in-laws and Angela followed close behind.
Wait a minute.
You see the reality of the situation, and you know you can't go back to the way things were. Be happy with Angela. Also the money from selling the house stuff. I'll give you half of it in advance. When I put the brown envelope with the cash in front of my husband, Angela took it from him.
Wow, thank you so much. I'll accept this as a wedding gift for us.
Mark was astonished by Angela's actions and couldn't help but wonder what he saw in her. I was a little depressed to think that I had lost my husband to someone who did not have common sense or courtesy.
What's wrong with you? To put my son through this? Honestly, I can't stand families without any common sense. Let's go home. Since you're getting divorced anyway, there's no reason to stay here anymore. I don't want to stay here anymore either. Mark, let's go home soon.
My husband was then pulled along by my mother-in-law and Angela. My father-in-law followed behind them somewhat reluctantly.
Honey, bring me the salt. Salt. I've already got it. Here you go.
My parents held salt in their hands and kept throwing it at my in-laws and Angela repeatedly, even after they disappeared from view. A few days later, a pre-filled divorce form arrived at the house. Finally, the divorce could happen. Congratulations, Stacy. My husband resisted until the end, but I wonder why he didn't want to divorce. I thought Angela was just a fling, but it seems it got out of hand. Cheating during my wife's pregnancy is something you hear about often, huh? As usual, everyone's insights here are amazing. That's right, it looks like it was just a fling with Angela. After our discussion at my parents' house, I got a long apologetic what's up from my husband. It said he truly loves only me. Well, if that were true, he shouldn't have cheated, right? After the divorce papers arrived, I sent a lawyer to my ex-husband and Angela. We needed to decide on child support and alimony, of course. Of course, I also claim alimony from Angela, but my ex-husband never mentioned wanting to meet or have a visit with our child. No matter how much he says he loves me, he totally ignored his child. After quickly deciding the amount of child support and alimony, I submitted the divorce papers to the city office. Then I texted my ex-husband and told him I had submitted the divorce papers. With this, my ties with my husband have ended. Or so I thought. Oh no, that sounds ominous. But because we have a son, even though the ties are over, it won't be the end like this. Since my ex-husband is likely full of regret, I expect he might do something. About 10 years after the divorce, I received a call from an unknown number. When I answered, it was my ex-husband on the line. He said he wanted to meet our son. I wondered why now, but he is still our son's father. Yet he has never met our son since birth. Still, I asked why he suddenly wanted to meet. At first, he hesitated but reluctantly told me that Angela's child wasn't actually his. When the child got sick, they tested the blood type at the hospital. The child had a blood type that couldn't possibly be theirs. When he confronted Angela about it, she admitted to having a relationship with others. It seems Angela knew the child wasn't my ex-husband's. But since my ex-husband had the highest income and stability among her partners, she chose to stay with him. He was deeply shocked to realize the child he had raised as his own wasn't biologically his, so he wanted to meet his true biological child, our son. By the way, he said he wouldn't tell his parents about this. It seems like I intend to take this secret to my grave alone. He didn't want to change his current relationships or life. I was infuriated by my ex-husband's selfish attitude, but I don't have the right to refuse him seeing his child. I have contacted the lawyer who helped me during the divorce again to discuss this. I'm currently trying to figure out how to prevent my ex-husband from meeting our child. Wow, Angela's plan was so calculated, it's really despicable. She had your husband raise someone else's child. As for your ex-husband and in-laws, serves them right. Ignorance is bliss, huh? Well, your ex-husband has found out. I think my ex-husband will suffer more now that he knows. You can't be happy with others after destroying your own family. When you do something beyond the realm of morality, you get retribution. I thought I'd be careful about my ex-husband. Although the meeting between my ex-husband and my child hasn't been settled yet, I'll end it here for now. I'll make sure to return if there's any good news. Thank you for sticking with me through all this. Stacy, I pray you can refuse the visitation. I can't quite accept that even such a father has the right to meet the child. Why not wait until the kid wants to see his father? Don't selfishly manipulate the child because of the parents. Considering you, Stacy, the child will make the best decision. We should warmly watch over the child. The husband who cheated during Stacy's pregnancy has fallen into an irreversible situation. The home was shattered by Angela, and the family built with Angela was also a lie. Angela may think she successfully broke up Stacy and her husband and married her husband, but if the child realizes the secret of his birth, will the current situation continue? The conclusion is uncertain, but Angela's future may not be bright. Selfish happiness makes those around you unhappy. Is that really happiness? Not realizing true happiness itself might be a form of unhappiness.